I have so many people come in and they don't even know that they're not the same thing. And so I thought the way that we could start was kind of by talking about a little bit about Botox and a little bit about fillers, and hopefully that'll help you guys understand some of the differences. So Botox came out years ago. It actually was almost accidentally discovered up in Canada by the Carruthers, and it is a onabotulinum toxin that actually stops muscle movement, all right? So why would we use that in dermatology and in aging? Well, as you can see, I'm talking, I'm frowning, and sometimes when we animate our face, we create little, what we call, lines of expression. So you smile, you get little crow's feet. When you frown, you get what we call those glabellar lines. And over time, when you keep moving, you create what's called a wrinkle at rest. So now all of a sudden, you're not frowning, you're not smiling, and you still have that line. So Botox is a great way to actually stop that movement. So we always tell our patients, not only is it going to soften the line that you have, it's actually going to prevent that line from getting worse. So we have people who come in actually even in their late 20s up until their 70s. So there's a really broad range of people that can get it. And if you think about it, it's really one of the easiest ways to help kind of slow down that aging process. So where could you get it? Well, you can get it really very many places. The most common place that people tend to get it is, like I said, those 11s. And I'm going to go over a little bit of the anatomy. So when we treat these lines here, we call them brow depressors. So if you can see I'm frowning, I'm actually able to frown a little bit because my Botox is wearing off, which is good for you guys because you can see it. So I'm frowning, and if you can tell, I'm kind of pulling my brows down. So if I were to block that with Botox, well, I would get an elevation. So it kind of helps open up your eyes and lift it. So what about forehead lines? Well, these muscles are what we call brow elevators. So if I lift up, it actually is lifting my brow. So again, if I do your forehead, it's going to kind of prevent that from lifting as much. So we want to be really careful with how we inject the forehead so that we give you that smoothness without making your brow too heavy, right? So if I smile, you can see I got a few little lines out here. Well, those are the muscles around the eye, and so when I stop those muscles, well, then all of a sudden I don't have those crow's feet. The most common area for people to start using Botox is the upper third of the face. But can we use it in other places? Absolutely. We can use it down here to help prevent kind of frowning. We use it a lot of times along the jawline. That's called the Nefertiti lift. If any of you know, Nefertiti was a queen in Egypt, and she had this very strong, pronounced jawline. And so that's how they came up with the Nefertiti lift. So it's just a few units along here. We do it along the platysmal band for those strong bands that we get as we get older. So many different places for us to use Botox. The nice thing about it is it's quick, there's really no downtime, it's not really that painful to do, and it lasts for about 3 to 4 months. So, good news is if you don't like it, it goes away. Bad news is if you like it, it kind of goes away. So, but we recommend kind of staying up on it because helping to stop those muscles really helps to prevent that aging. Now, fillers. Fillers we actually use to replace lost volume. And there's lots of different fillers. When they first came out with fillers, they actually came out with collagen, and it was bovine collagen. Well, you can't really put collagen in your body if it's bovine, which means it comes from cows, without testing for it. And it only lasted for 3 months. So you'd have to do skin tests, you have to get tested, and it only lasted for 3 months. Then they came out with hyaluronic acid fillers. And hyaluronic acid is actually a filler that's naturally occurring in your body, so you don't need to get tested. So all of a sudden, you are able to get fillers without having to be pre-tested. And they last you for anywhere from 8 to about 18 months, depending on the filler that you're using. There's also calcium hydroxyapatite, or Radiesse is the brand name, and that one is also naturally occurring in your skin. So those are 2 types of fillers that you can use that you don't have to get tested for. There are other types of fillers, which I can get into later, that might last you a little bit longer, but you do need to get tested for them, and we really only use them in certain instances. So I would say the most common ones that we use are the hyaluronic acid fillers. We usually use mostly Juvederm brand, whether you're using Juvederm Ultra, Ultra Plus, Volbella, Velour, or Voluma. Those are the ones we usually use, and I love those because if for some reason, which does not happen a lot, but if for some reason you don't like how it is, then we can actually dissolve it. So I always say you have an escape plan. And sometimes, especially if you're a little nervous, having an escape plan is a great idea. Well, where would I do fillers? Honestly, we use them all over the face. And I'm going to take a second to kind of go over the aging face with you, just like we talked about why we have lines and wrinkles at rest. So as we get older, a few things happen. Your eyes actually start shifting and they kind of go down. You have these fat pads that start falling, okay? Your temples start hollowing out. Everything starts going down. You get these deeper folds. You get a little bit jowly. It's kind of depressing. I just turned 50 this year, and it was interesting for me. But I have fillers, and I think that they help to maintain my youthful appearance in a very natural way. So where can we put fillers? You can put fillers in the temple area to help fill out those hollows and to prevent you from turning into what I like to call the peanut head, because you don't want to be hollow in there and then hollow in there and you kind of look like a peanut head. That's no fun. A lot of times we have people who come in and say, I hate my dark circles. So dark circles underneath the eyes, fillers are great. All right, everybody's always afraid, oh my gosh, it's my eyes, what if something happens? Actually, eyes are not that painful, believe it or not. I have filler under my eyes and I think it looks very natural. And they really can be done in a very natural way. You just have to have someone who is a very good injector in that area. But it's a great area to help with dark circles. As you go down, a lot of times people think about these lines, but I do want to point out that if all you do is focus on this line, you are missing the boat on why you're aging. The reason that you have that line is because your cheek is falling out here, and like I said, these fat pads are coming down. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll actually help to lift your cheek up, okay? And that's more youthful. That's what you looked like, is you had more of a lifted cheek. And when you do that, you put the emphasis back up on the upper part of the face as opposed to down. So if you have kids or you're around, a younger person, you look at them and their face is a triangle. And I always say, when you're young, you have a triangle. And as you get older, that triangle shifts and you become bottom heavy. And nobody likes to be bottom heavy. So when we do fillers up in the cheek area, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to turn your triangle back up like this, put the emphasis back up here, and so that you look more youthful. I'm going to keep going down the face. Where else can you put filler? Well, obviously we can do the nasal folds. We can do these little hollows that we call marionette lines. A lot of times as you get older, your chin starts to recede, believe it or not, because your teeth change. And so we can put a little filler in the chin area along this border and out here along here. So if you think about it, what we're really doing is we're kind of trying to lift your face back up, and that's why we call it the liquid facelift, is we're trying to lift your face back up to look more youthful. Now I'm going to talk about lips. So a lot of people are terrified of doing their lips. They come in here all the time. I don't want to look like I had my lips done. I don't want to look like that. Well, the reality is you can have it done in a very natural way. You don't have to do it in a way that everybody can tell that you've done it. And part of that is technique and someone knowing how to do the lip. So in the past, when people would do lips, a lot of times they would focus on just that border. Because as we get older, one of the things that happens is we start losing volume in our lips, not just in our face. And our lips start doing this. And we start feeling kind of bad about it. And then our lipstick bleeds into those lines. So doing your lips in a natural way can kind of help evert it. So if you have it done, I like to actually inject from above into the lip and a little bit this way. You can actually return your lip to what it looked like. Or what if you have an asymmetric lip? We have a lot of patients who come in and they'll have one side of their lip is a little bit more deflated than the other. So a lot of what we do is focused on symmetry. I actually have filler in my lips, which I had done just this year. I never thought I would need it, but guess what? I got older and my lips started disappearing, and I kept looking at my face and thinking, why is this not look like me? And I realized part of it was my lips. And so I had one of our providers do them, and I think they look really good. So I just want everyone to know, if you're nervous about lips, don't be nervous. You just need to have someone do them who is conscious of how a pretty lip can look. So I want to make sure that I answer all your questions. I don't know, is that a good time for us? Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up from my camera lady. So let's take your first question.
I'm interested in Botox and filler, but I don't want to look frozen like many of the celebrities. What can I do?
Well, I think a lot of that actually has to do with a really good consultation that you have ahead of time. All right, so I think that when you come into our office, for example, we will sit with you and spend a good amount of time to figure out what you want. And so sometimes you don't need to have Botox everywhere. Maybe you only start with in between your brow. Maybe you just start with your crow's feet, right? You don't have to do everything at once. The other thing is, filler-wise, maybe you just focus on the area that bothers you, all right? I think that when we look at people that are on the TV that have had a lot of work done, maybe what you don't realize is maybe they have gotten to that point, but you don't have to do that. Everything is in the hands of the injector. And so honestly, having that consultation and having them understand what you need is really important.
What can you do about the jowls? We just got a question in from one of our viewers.
Oh, okay. So by jowls, you're talking about right in here, I'm assuming, and like this kind of gels. So I'm going to talk about more than just Botox and filler for a second, okay? So number one, as I said, when your face starts aging, everything starts falling south, and you start getting these heavy little jowls. And I myself was struggling with that, and I've had filler. You can do filler in this area. A lot of times I like to do filler along the jawline, a little bit in the chin. You can also do a little Botox to what we call the DAO, that depresses the corner of your mouth. And so that kind of pulls this area down. So by doing Botox here, it lifts that back up. But even if you do that, you might still have a little jowl there. So I actually had Kybella done last year. Kybella is an injection. It came out a few years ago. It's deoxycholic acid, which your gallbladder makes to dissolve any kind of fatty meal that you make, and it actually gets rid of the fat. So I had my jowls done, I had under here done, and I think it was one of the best things that I did to help eliminate some of the fat that was there. There's other things that we can do, but we can talk about that at a later time. But we have threads that we can do. A lot of people are looking at thread lifts. They have a lot of very little downtime actually. Patients love them. You can also do tightening procedures that can help kind of lift overall. But the jowls are an area that I personally know really bothered me. And so I've had the Kybella worked really well. Althera works really well. There's lots of things in our toolbox.